Welcome everybody to Beyond the Shadows. I'm author and ghost historian Mike Ricksecker. With me is Shana Wankel, our chat shenanigator from Edge of the Rabbit Hole. I think you actually kicked into some volume there for a second. Ooh. I did that once and got all holy hell for it. All right, so Ancient Aliens is our topic for Beyond the Shadows tonight. Hopefully this one goes fairly well live. We had some technical difficulties last time when we went live over Facebook. But this will eventually be uploaded to YouTube, so you guys can catch the spiffied up version there. So, yes, Andrea's recognizing the shirt. Yes, I do know that they are going to be touring again, which is why I'm wearing their shirt. But thank you for recognizing Motley Crue. That's right. So, but we will talk about that another time. And Tim Schoen is saying, I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens. So we got to do it. This episode of Beyond the Shadows is brought to you by a Haunted Road Roast. It helps you hunt aliens. It helps you hunt ghosts. That's what we usually say. So, the official coffee of Haunted Road Media. So, Ancient Aliens in Adam Tillery, does someone say Anunnaki? So, yeah, are the Anunnaki Ancient Aliens? So, it's an interesting topic, an interesting idea. I have been binge watching it lately, which is kind of why the whole topic is coming up here. And Shauna's been, when she's not working and has come in to, she's watched some of it as well, and it's intriguing to say the least. They always kind of wrap up the whole thing. You get like, this piece of ancient history, and well, maybe it was extraterrestrials, and it's kind of like, okay, I don't know, but all the other stuff was really interesting. So I thought we'll take all kinds of questions and comments from the chat. I do have some just basic stuff that I'm going to throw out there, and I am going to throw out there that I'm not saying it's aliens, and just leave it at that, because I really don't know. We weren't around back then. Did extraterrestrials visit our planet, thousands of years ago? I mean, I think they visit our planet now. You've had experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have I. So do you think it's possible that thousands of years ago they could have visited our planet?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. And so if they did, and our ancient ancestors saw these people there, it's kind of, the question, how would they represent them? And, the theories are that they were represented by the gods in these different cultures. You guys, I don't know if you've heard of like a cargo cult, which are basically when cargo planes hit, like from World War II and things like that, where they hit areas that had never seen technology before. They're basically like third world countries, totally cut off from everything, and they ended up basically deifying these people and built their own little plane sculptures and sculptures of the soldiers that were there for a short period of time, and they basically turned them into gods. And we're talking only like a 50-60 year period here. So why not over thousands and thousands of years? So that is what we're going to be getting into this evening with this topic. So Andrew Helton, well, with records that have been lost, it's estimated we are a good 500 to 600 behind where we should be as far as technology. Yeah, and probably even more so. And that's a big thing for me. You look at, I threw it together real quick. So let's see, what do we want to hit first? We could hit the Sphinx. We could hit the pyramids at Giza. I had a lot of things that I just threw in here and just didn't have time to organize because I ran out of time. So, we take a look at something like the pyramids, or you take a look at something like, and I didn't even have time to grab the photo, like the Trilithon at Baalbek. These massive structures with these huge stones that are like hundreds or thousands of tons in weight. Even some of the different Inca structures, which may predate the Incans. How are those put together? Now, of course, some people will sit there and say, well, it was aliens. And it may not have even been aliens, but a technology that's been lost to time that they utilized that we no longer know or possess. Was it, some people will theorize, sound waves or something to do with magnetics that we just don't know anymore. Somehow, some way, they were able to lift these huge, heavy objects that only now are we able to lift some of them. It's just insane. So, Lindsay Haynes totally, back then they didn't have any idea of aliens, so they would think they're gods. Makes sense to me. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Also from Lindsay Haynes Tully, I have a wacky question, probably for a bit later. Was D.B. Cooper an alien? That's a little specific, or kind of like, high level at the moment. So we'll save that question for later here, because that is a good one. I've actually thought of including D.B. Cooper in my Shadow Person book as far as interdimensional beings, because nobody knows whatever the heck happened to him. So Robert Hanna, Curse of Oak Island, Ancient Aliens, favorite History Channel shows. Yep. Yeah, they're very, very cool. So they almost kind of play into each other. In fact, they do play into each other. Marty Lagina from Oak Island was on an episode of Ancient Aliens when they were in Sardinia. So, which Marty's not the guy you would think that would do it. You'd think it'd be Rick. Mm-hmm. So, because Marty's kind of the more straight and narrow, or Rick is the one that's always like, he was the one that wanted to go to Oak Island to begin with. So, Shana will watch that one with me too.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Trying to work in some different concepts if you saw the write-up, so that Shana will have, because she's always like, I'm all about the ghosts. And so I know that coming into this episode, she was probably a little like, oh my God.
Yeah, I might have seen this. Maybe that happened. I wasn't there. I don't know. And then that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. So some of the different things that we'll get into as we go down the road are like, can we communicate with spirits from these civilizations from back then? If we're reincarnated beings from ancient times, might we have locked memories of visitation? So things like that we'll get into and cover those concepts with Shana. So, but I did want to give like an overarching idea here. So kind of back to, okay, there's the pyramids, and there's different concepts that people have been discovering over time. Like if you look at the pyramids from above and see that the way that they're put together, you kind of see that, they're aligned with Orion. There's even, of course, different concepts with the Sphinx and how old it is. And none of this is actually saying aliens, which I find fascinating, because you always see this stuff on the Ancient Aliens episodes, and it's not even necessarily aliens. With the Sphinx, well, we talked about Edgar Casey a little bit on the show with Brian Cano, and Edgar Casey actually had predicted that there would be a room under the one paw of the Sphinx, and they have done some testing there where there is a void there, so there is something there. And so Edgar Casey got that one right. But the Sphinx is actually older than what people say, according to Robert Schock, a geologist, because there's weather erosion here, from a rain erosion here. Of course, there's weather erosion. More mainstream archaeologists will argue that it's wind. Who am I? I'm not even a geologist, but I can see from just the channeling that it's water. I would say that there is some wind erosion on the Sphinx itself, so I think it's a mixture of the two, and the two sides can stop arguing with each other. This, with the enclosure, is clearly water, and then you see some of the wind erosion on the Sphinx itself, so I think it's a bit of both. And that's well, you can see it even a little bit more clearly there. And that's just a pretty picture of the Sphinx. But, I find it really interesting that, it's, a lot of people will relate this back to the idea of ancients and aliens in ancient times, because how did people, given the Darwinian theory of evolution, how could we as humans, if we're in this line, this way we're supposed to have evolved, suddenly have this technology to be able to move these massive blocks and be able to carve these magnificent things without really having the tools to do so. So the theory is, of course, that maybe aliens, the gods, came down and taught us how to do these different things. Or is it just that, well, people back then knew? So you have like your crystals.
Yes.
That you have. We've talked about crystals on here before, having a power to them. So did they perhaps have a better idea on how to use crystals and the power within to be able, I don't know, maybe to manipulate these things or move them?
They're probably a whole lot smarter than we are, for sure.
Well, but that might not even be anything to do with aliens. That just might have to be with back then, those people maybe being closer to the earth, using the earth more in their daily life than we do. I mean, think about, when do we ever actually get out there and touch the ground? You do when it's a full moon.
I do it a lot, actually.
Yeah. But what does that do for you when you're actually touching the ground?
I feel a little calmer.
Okay.
I mean, if especially if it's nice out, if it's not this gross winter crap, if it's nice out, and I go outside, that's kind of a way to detox, really. I mean, it literally feels like, not only am I touching the ground, it literally feels like grounding yourself. Like everything's a little crazy, and for a minute you're just like, okay, I'm okay now. So, and yeah, during a full moon, even a new moon, just different phases just feel different. Some people say, oh, well, there's really nothing to that, it's just well, maybe it is. Maybe it's whether it's chemically or whether it's metaphysically, whether it's my own vibrations or whatever it is, maybe it is just me. But then for someone else, it's just them. It affects them different than it affects me. Everybody's different. Just because I enjoy full moons for the reason that I enjoy them doesn't mean that somebody else has to do it the same way. Maybe a new moon feels stronger to them. So,
yeah, I'm just saying that I think that people back then were more in tune to what was going on with things like the moon phase. Obviously, they built a lot of these structures to monitor that and to keep track of the moon phases or even phases of the sun. So they were much more cognizant of what was going on in the world around them, where you take, like me, I'm not always going out barefoot in the moonlight like you do. Mm-hmm. I'm wearing shoes when I go outside, as do most people. So we've lost that connection. We have this insulation now between us and the earth. So we're not as in tune to it as, say, people back then that may have been barefoot or maybe had like a very thin sandal or something like that. They were much more connected to the earth.
All this stuff had to come from somewhere.
Right. Well, yeah.
Even if it's all bullshit, it's with every, piece of bullshit, there is a kernel of truth in there. So it all had to come from somewhere.
Justin Brown down here with a comment. I watched a documentary about grounding. They said the body needs the negatively charged ions from the earth to stay healthy and ward away inflammation in many bodily tissues.
Maybe I need to spend an awful lot more time barefoot. Mm-hmm. More than I am, more than I already do.
So, Lindsay Haynes Tully says, I've been to the pyramids. They knew about geometry through simple physics, but how did they align with the stars so perfectly? That is an excellent question. Since we're talking about moons, we talk about stars. Yeah, I mean, how did they align so perfectly with the stars, and specifically with the pyramids? How did they align so perfectly with true north? And also where it was constructed is essentially, it's almost like the center of the earth. There's so many different things that the Great Pyramid actually aligns with. And then just in the construction itself, it's actually not 4 sides, it's actually 6. And it's just so perfectly aligned for us these days to get it that perfectly aligned. You're talking like laser precision that, we're only able to do like nowadays. And I forgot to turn those lights off over there. So, yeah, it makes you wonder how they could do this on such a perfect scale like that. Did they have some sort of other technology that became lost over time that we're only regaining now? Of course, the question is, did that come from extraterrestrials? I don't know. It's always possible, or something within the culture that was lost. What I find interesting is, actually just lost my train of thought. But I guess the idea of the fact that you can lose something over time. Oh, here's what it was. Sorry, because I was thinking ahead 3 steps down the road. I'm not saying that they had computers back then. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be, we haven't found the ancient laptop. We haven't found the ancient cell phone. But somehow, some way, they had that technology. Now, there are strange artifacts that they've come up, that they've discovered along the way that are just completely out of place. Like a box of gears, that dated 1,000 years, earlier than it should have been, and things like that. So there are out of place items that they don't really have any rhyme or reason for. But you look at like some of the old maps. Antarctica, for example, we supposedly didn't discover Antarctica until the 1800s, and you look at some old maps and they actually have Antarctica back in the 1400s. So somewhere along the way, we lost the knowledge that Antarctica was there, and then ended up regaining the knowledge when we rediscovered it. So why not on a bigger, grander scale that we lost some knowledge of how to build like that, and only now with these machines that we've come up with are able to replicate it again. Is it aliens? I don't know. So what are these shoes you speak of? I'm always barefoot. That's funny. Mm-hmm. So Zippy Davis, weren't there metals back then that were way better than it is today? Well, I mean, they had different ways of smelting back then than we do now. So I wouldn't necessarily say better. I mean, there's different impurities that we pull out now that they couldn't back then, but you had different variations of the amount of different metals that were in there. Like they didn't necessarily like have the alloys that we have today. So it was different. It was different, and sometimes older things last longer. Marcellus Wilinski, I can't wait for the mothership to come. I'm ready to go home. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So am I. Tom McNicholas, how can aliens bring equipment to build pyramids on a spacecraft? I mean, you don't know. We don't know how the pyramids were built. And I would never say that the aliens built the pyramids. And I think a lot of people would say, no, the pyramids were human built. I think the argument is that they didn't have the technology back then in order to be able to build it. The conventional things that we have found could not possibly have built what they built. So how did they build them? And the question becomes, if visited by some sort of extraterrestrial, did they gain the knowledge on how to build it from those extraterrestrials? Not that the extraterrestrials built them themselves. It was the humans, just with some knowledge that they gained. So, yeah, there was a question here about the Great Library. I see Betty Lange referencing again. Remember, the Great Library was burnt to the ground, and Lindsay Haynes Tully had a question about, do you think the Library of Alexandria had all these answers and the fires destroyed all this ancient knowledge? Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot in the Library of Alexandria that I think we lost. But I don't just think it's there. I think it was in other places too. You know, we know about later in time, Council of Nicaea. As far as like, you can say, well, it was religious texts that they did away with, but some of those texts had knowledge in there that, from stuff that was found, is like, oh, okay, well, like the Book of Enoch and things like that, that have other narratives where you learn some other things that may have happened back then. I mean, like, what were the Watchers? And if you go back through history, and just the way that one culture would take over another, we're taking over this land. They would completely wipe out a race, completely wipe out a culture, including any written documents, that may have been acquired. Even more recently, when the Spanish came over here and obliterated the Aztecs, they obliterated their written texts. We have very, very few fragments left, so we don't know a lot of what happened. So yeah, Library of Alexandria is one of them, but there are many others as well. So, yeah, Adam Tillery, cutting of really straight edges on stones, i.e. Pumapunku, Tiwanaku, Machu Picchu. How? That's why I'm baffled by. Well, even the ones, what is the name of it? But it's down there in South America. The one where it's like all different crazy shapes. It's like they melted the blocks together. They're perfectly put together, but they're all crazy shapes and they're huge and massive. Yeah, how did they do that? What kind of technology? So I did want to get into some things with you, Shana, because I know that you're kind of just like standing by as we go through all this.
No, it's fascinating.
It's fascinating. You're listening. She's listening. Okay. I have to try to. She's here. I want to include her.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm watching and listening.
Okay. You're shenanigating the chat?
Kind of.
All right.
Without looking down too much.
Okay.
Because that's bad.
Lindsay Haynes Tully, if we lost all books and all computer records, how much would a disconnected society be able to glean concerning what we know? Well, I mean, yeah. So if we lost all books and all computer records, we would lose a crap ton because that's our reference material. When you want to know how to learn how to do something these days, what do? You Google, right? And if your internet is down, maybe you have a book somewhere that shows you how to do it. If you lose both of those, very little of our knowledge is handed down these days, mouth to mouth, or you learn a trade from somebody. There are some woodworking things that I've learned from my father, but I don't know all that he does. We would have to work a lot together for me to be able to pick that up. If I'm doing a project here at home, we're 500 miles away. If I'm doing a project here at home, I might ask him over the phone, or I'm going to hit Google. So yeah, it's a wealth of information. The other thing is Graham Hancock makes a really excellent point about this, about society being lost, and so he and many others have the idea that a comet thousands of years ago obliterated a lot of the society that we had back then, that we did have a much more sophisticated ancient culture that built things like these pyramids and all that, and that this catastrophe eliminated the learned individuals that knew how to do these different things. And so who would basically, if you had a global cataclysm today, okay, who would survive that? Because, let's say you lost, all power, the water didn't work anymore, just all of our infrastructure just obliterated right now. Who would survive that? Because most everybody knows that I drive in my car and I go to the grocery store and I get food from there and I take it home and I cook it on my stove. Well, let's say you don't have your car anymore and you couldn't go to the grocery store and get food, and you didn't have your electric range or even a gas stove right now. So what would you do for food? So people would starve and die. How would you build new buildings? There's only a select few that would know how to do that. The people that would live through that would be the people that knew how to survive in the wild, in the wilderness, but they may not have been the people that know how to build a house or a car or a computer or something like that. The people that knew how to do those things, most of them don't know how to survive out in the wild, so those would be the ones that would die off in a global cataclysm. So if that's what happened back then, that's how the knowledge would have been lost, or at least one theory in any case. So the chat got really backed up, so I'm just scrolling through to see if you guys had any other questions. Betty Lengi, if I saw an ancient Egyptian walking down the street, he or she would seem like an alien. Well, that's a good point. And so that leads to an interesting question. So are some of the alien sightings that have come around, or even shadow people or ghosts or something like that, are they time travelers from another time, from the future or from the past? What do you think?
I've never asked one. And I don't think they'd answer anyway.
They might not.
But could be.
Could be. I've wondered since I was on Tracy Lockwood's show a few years ago telling my shadow person story of the shadow person coming up, crossing my arms across my body, and then running off down the hall. And so she had suggested, perhaps they thought I was dead and, put me in a pose like with the crook and flail from back in ancient Egypt times. And if that was the case, then, where's the context for that? So why would they think ancient Egypt and put me in that pose? Were they, were they traveling from that time? Were they actually an ancient Egyptian? Time traveling. Or if we're going to throw aliens into the mix, did the ancient Egyptians get this idea, this concept from an alien race? And perhaps maybe it was that one of those type of aliens in my room at the time performing one of those customs, if that's what was going on. It's an idea. She's just listening over here.
I wasn't there.
I know you weren't there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know.
But I can't say no, it wasn't either. Maybe.
Yeah. So there's Melanie Baggy kind of piggybacking off the concept we were talking about a little while ago. Does anyone even know how to kill a chicken nowadays? I mean, chop off his head. But, I mean, there are old family stories from my side, from my grandmother's side, where my great-grandfather had chopped off a chicken's head in the basement because they were going to cook it for dinner, and it was running around all over the place and blood going everywhere. Crazy stuff. But I think, Shana, you probably know
how to kill a chicken.
Well, I've heard some squirrel stories from you.
I've never killed a chicken.
You've told me before you know how to skin your own game. This is why I've kept you around, in case there's some sort of tragedy. Then I know Shana can skin her own game, and we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I can. My dad Made sure I knew how to do all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to kill the animals, but I didn't mind cutting them open and dressing them and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Oh, geez. Marcellus Walensky. We have cat and dog ghosts. Why not dinosaur ghosts? Well, and why not alien ghosts, right?
Yeah.
You've thrown that one out there before. You know, what about alien ghosts? You know, if they came here thousands of years ago, or even hundreds of years ago, or even, you know, the Roswell incident, because supposedly those aliens didn't survive, or at least most of them. So, would they possibly be ghosts? Could we sit down there and do an EVP session and get an alien?
I mean, they would have to do the impossible and own up to it first, and I'm sure that there's a rule for that. You know, hey, you're not supposed to say, you know, where you're from, let alone what you are, and you know, I don't think we're supposed to know.
We talked about that with Brian on Edge of the Rabbit Hole. It was about, you know, is there that rule book? Or, you know, if it is an alien ghost, right? And you're asking the question about where are you from? What if it actually gives you an answer, but because it's maybe from some strange name or they're speaking in an alien language, you don't quite understand what it is that's being said, and so you just pawn it off as like, okay, that was nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you would at least make, you know, an effort to. We had some stuff at the cafe and some oddball, you know, language that we didn't understand, and had to, you know, kind of send it around, you know, to various places trying to find out if it was like some type of dead language or, you know, and since we assumed it was Native American in some way because of the land that we were on, and then you know, there are certain, you know, places, certain people that research, you know, that try to revive, you know, dead languages and can get close, you know. And there was one, I told you about that we were trying to get, and we're able to get close, but not quite. And yeah. So you'd at least have to make the effort, you know, to do that, but to find out what you might be dealing with. And then if you can't get it completely translated, then does it go back further than what we have record of? What are you actually dealing with?
Kathy Ciliento says, one thing is for sure, the more we ponder, the more questions we have. Talk about going down a rabbit hole. Well, that's why our first show was Edge of the Rabbit Hole. That's why my bracelet says curiouser and curiouser. Because, yes, we go down that rabbit hole, and we are curious human beings. And there's a lot of different things that could be true about all of this. So they're talking about catching turkeys now. Okay. We really went down a rabbit hole there. So Robert Hanna, do you guys think extraterrestrials experimented with early humans, and that's why we are the way we are today? Like they mentioned in Ancient Aliens. I mean, it's an interesting thought. Because they have found a large variety of different types of humans. But not like the in-betweens. So while there's a large variety of different ones that have walked on the earth, they haven't found like the whole evolutionary process to get from one to the other. It's like, it's not even like a jump from one to the other. They're all like in different places on what they call the family tree. So it's like, how did that happen? To go from what was a Homo sapien to a Homo sapien sapien that we are now, it was like a jump within 50,000 years, which is, if you're talking the way evolution is supposed to happen, is actually an extremely fast period of time for that whole process to have taken place. So, you know, could it have been some sort of alien that came down here and manipulated our genetic code to create that. I mean, there is, Adam Tillery mentioned it earlier, the Anunnaki. There are a lot of ideas about the Anunnaki, that they came here and they made a worker race of humans from other creatures that were already on the planet, like, you take the ape or what have you. And it's like there's one part of the, one chromosome or one part of the DNA strand that the way it's done cannot have naturally happened. It had to have been genetically modified in order to create humans like that. So then the question, of course, comes up, who did that? Who made the genetic modification? Was it aliens? So, because I don't think it would have been the monkeys. So it leads to a lot of questions that we just don't have answers for right now. And what's difficult in trying to find a lot of these, different questions is that over the amount of years, things disintegrate and we lose them. So, like metals will rust and they'll be gone, or wood will rot away. Paper, of course, will disintegrate if it was done on paper. And so a lot of times we're just left with stone, and so we're trying to make sense of stone, and you can't carbon date stone. It's one of the one of the issues with it. And they've even had issues now with discovering that, carbon dating isn't exactly reliable. So they've been trying to work some corrections into carbon dating to try to fix a number of those calculations. But then they come across weird things like that hammer that they found in sediment that's like 100,000 years old, or maybe it was like 120,000 years old, or whatever it was. And it is petrifying to the point where part of it is petrified wood now, which takes tens of thousands of years to happen. But then there's also a part of that's turning into coal, and for that to happen, you're talking hundreds of thousands of years, for something like that to happen. That's why they've dated it as much as they have, is that you can't but it's a tool, it's a hammer. Where the heck did that come from 140,000 years ago, or whatever it was, 120, 140? It's one of those objects that shouldn't exist, but it's there. So it makes you wonder about how, human history really actually worked. Did we have this constant back and forth of, society was growing, and then we met with a cataclysm, and it died off, and then slowly grew up again, and then something happened and died off. It makes you wonder what's going to happen to us now. Are we just another cycle in the Matrix? Another iteration of the Matrix. There'll be a Neo, and then we'll get obliterated, and they'll restart it all over again.
Probably.
Probably. So, Justin Brown, do you think it's possible that there is a secret race of beings that live below ground, forced there from an ancient apocalypse in order to survive? I ask because I've heard about aliens living underground and in the sea. UFOs have been going into and rising out of the water. What if there is much going on down below that then we know? What do you think, Shana?
I don't
Why not?
believe it. Yeah, I mean, anything is possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is actually quite possible. I mean, I've heard reports of people seeing UFOs come up out of the water, but there's probably enough proof out there to say that people were driven underground to live. Where was it? Was it Malta, where they found all the crazy, caves? And I mean, there's actually multiple locations where they have found like massive cave systems that people dug out of the ground with apparently their bare hands to live in for significant periods of time. So it makes you wonder what caused them to choose that method of living, to dig these caves and live underground. And if they did it, yeah, why not? Why aren't there some beings still out there? Well, there's even near here, Moberly, Missouri. There's that story. Remember?
Kind of.
what was it, like it's one of those that got kind of skirted under the rug, like all the giant bones that were found throughout the country. Like I mean, you can go through the old newspaper archives and find all the different reports of the giant bones, and then they would suddenly disappear, or the Smithsonian would come in and they'd suddenly be gone or whatever. But there is that one report. It was Moberly, Missouri, and they had found like this massive cave system underground. The guy, he was like digging a mine or something, whatever the heck he was doing. And it was like this whole underground city abandoned that he found. But yet that kind of got skirted under the rug. And so now it's become like legend and lore. But, there are those old newspaper reports that this was seriously and legitimately found. So, I don't know. So, Justin, to answer your question, maybe. I'm surprised somebody hasn't asked about Hollow Earth. So, Lindsay Haynes Tully, was it Dana Diva? She believes it was angels that spliced us. So, are the angels actually aliens? What do you think? Angels are aliens?
Why not?
She's just gonna hold up a sign. Why not?
Maybe.
I mean, there's people that believe that angels were a type of aliens, or like the Watchers and all of that stuff, that they were actually extraterrestrials, in that we put these names and concepts on top of them to explain over the years. So. And Victoria Mundane throwing out there the Hollow Earth theory. What about the Hollow Earth theory? What if the info that we're missing is inside the Earth with those who live there? We are the newer race living on the Earth. Just a thought. This is what I'll say about Hollow Earth. So I don't believe that there are massive gaping holes at the North and South poles that lead into like this huge, massive, hollow Earth. I believe it is a natural ball that's spinning around the sun, but I will say that there are probably massive caverns under the ground that exist, that could people live and inhabit and things like that. Sure. The moon, we covered this the other day, is the moon a spaceship, Shana?
I mean, I want to say maybe, but it's not a strong maybe. I don't really think so.
There are people that believe the moon is a spaceship because of how perfect it is placed in orbit around the planet. That you look elsewhere in the solar system, you don't have this, how perfect it is. I don't believe it's a spaceship, but when they went up to the moon, one of the tests that they were running was the resonance, in that when they crashed things into it, it rang like a bell for like hours. It's still giving an idea that there is a hollowness to the moon, and that might just be natural with the way it was formed. It may have left, I don't know, like maybe an air bubble got trapped in there. I don't know. Like, if at some point in time this whole thing was molten, and we've seen channels under the ground from molten lava, that those tunnels are there. So if we were molten at one point in time and it's solidified and maybe had like those fissures, or like I said, an air bubble or whatever heck under there could be large caverns and things like that underground, that to a degree a part of the earth would have a hollowness to it, but not like, I don't think the whole thing is hollow, but there are those illustrations from a while back, and I forgot who made them, but they actually have the earth, it looks like two large parentheses, because they have the hole at the top and the hole at the bottom, and then here's the land, right, and the oceans and all that, and then there was an actual like sun in the middle of the earth. I don't buy that one, but could other races of beings be living underground in large caverns? Yeah, why not? Why not? So, while we were talking about that, the chat went pretty long. Betty Lang, are we riding the back of a giant turtle? Oh, it could be like Men in Black, where we're just like a marble. The whole universe is a marble. So, let's ask this. We did get into the communication with spirits from these civilizations and aliens. We talked about, alien ghosts and stuff like that. So that was kind of the stuff that we had listed in the description. But, okay, if we are... You believe in reincarnation. She's nodding yes for those listening to the podcast.
Sorry, I was trying to hold back another yawn. I thought another one was coming.
Okay, because this will go audio at some point. So for those listening to the podcast, she was nodding her head yes.
Yeah.
So we are reincarnated from people from ancient times, and I know that you have good reason to believe that you were, burned at the stake as a witch or drowned as a witch many times. But we're going back further, ancient. If we are those people, would we? Because people sometimes talk about having a memory from a past life. Would we somewhere along the way have a memory of that ancient life and possibly know if we were visited or not, if that was one of our experiences in that past life?
I was told that I was a perfumist in ancient Egypt for royalty once.
Oh, there you go. Okay, here's some ancient past life stuff. So that was from a past life regression? Mm-hmm. Okay. So ancient perfumist. Okay.
Yeah, back in Egypt for royalty.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, maybe,
Maybe.
I was like, I don't remember that far back, so I don't know.
Right.
I feel like, they're like the witch, the various past lives, that I believe that. It makes so much sense.
Well, it makes sense as to why you're afraid of water and things like that.
Some of the dreams. Well, that one dream that I had that was very significant, and I totally I'm never 100% sure about anything, but I am 99% sure that was a past life. I felt that one, and just how it ended, but then how it started up, where I came back. I feel like some of the other ones, that I've been told, they make sense. I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I can see that one. But do I have any type of, recollection of any of that? No. It makes sense, but no, I don't remember. And maybe I would if, I don't know. I'm pretty open, I want to know stuff like that. I want to know that it exists, and I want to be able to, experience things. So am I subconsciously shutting down that part because secretly I'm afraid to know? Because I'm afraid that if I find out this one thing, that it's going to unlock all this other stuff that I don't want to experience. Can you have one without having all the rest of it? So maybe subconsciously my mind is just shut down so that I don't find out. I don't know how that works.
Well, I think our mind, for the most part, is repressed from those past lives. We very rarely remember something from. Sometimes it comes up in a dream. Sometimes it's like with you at the water. It comes up as a trait that you have now. But some people are able to go into a meditative state and access what they call the Akashic record, which is supposed to be a record of all things for all time. So, like with you at the water, it comes up as a trait that you have now. Some people are able to go into a meditative state and access what they call the Akashic record, which is supposed to be a record of all things for all time. So, like with you at the water, it comes up as a trait that you have now. Some people are able to go into a meditative state and access what they call the Akashic record, which is supposed to be a record of all things for all time. So, if we're able to, like if you were able to access that, go into a meditative state and access this perfumist that you were to have been, I wonder, would you be able to see all the memories from that particular life? And if there was an interaction like that, or even if like you witnessed the pyramids being built, that you would be able to have that piece of information and say, this is what happened.
They would probably send out an alert, a beacon, and be like, oh, no. She can't remember that. We can't do that.
She's not allowed.
And then the powers that be that reside over that type of, over that type of stuff would probably just flick a switch and then ding, it'd be gone. So
the Akashic Record Gestapo comes down and says, no, you're not allowed. Yeah. Or Betty Lange says, or a nightmare. Yeah, it comes out in some interesting ways for sure. So it just, it does make you wonder, though. There was that guy, somebody down in the chat remembers his name, I'm sure. The guy that made the Coral Castle. And this was just over the last 100 years that he built that. And he utilized, some people, there were like kids that walked by and said, he's using these snow cone type items. And we don't know what they were, whether they're some sort of, rock or crystal or whatever. And then you look at his pulley system that he had put together, and there was no way that these, 3 sticks in the the chain that he had there was going to pull these, tons and tons of stones. But there's this little black box thing that was up there. And so it makes you wonder what may have been up in that black box to aid him through this. And he claimed that he had discovered the secret of the ancients to be able to build this thing, mold these blocks and put them all together. And nobody can really find the answer to that in some of the papers that he left. But somehow he was able to do it. Somehow, whether he accessed that piece of information that he wasn't supposed to get or whatever, it happened. So it is possible. Somehow, some way. So, Genevieve Rogue is saying, hi, check out the Hutchison Effect Anti-Gravity. They're doing a lot of different experimentation right now with anti-gravity concepts, which is, kind of the direction that they need to go. Our standard Newtonian physics right now only gets us so far. I mean, basically, we're strapping an explosive to our back to get ourselves out of the Earth's atmosphere, which is not very safe. It's the most dangerous way to travel, by the way. Airplanes are the safest. They are. Although everybody's scared of airplanes because of what happens when one crashes. It's very violent. Cars are the least safest. No, wait a second. I have to take that back. Space travel is the least safest, which is what I said to begin with. In any case, I think we're getting tired is the deal. We do run this show pretty late. So Victoria Mundane says, yes, you can remember I have done a regression. It brought back memories of the end of my lives. One life I was hit in the back with a ceiling timber, then collapsed during a fire. That was apparently the end of that life. And let's see, I have to see more. Okay, and then she has some other stuff here. So, and that's why she has back pain. Okay. That's supposed to be one of those things about the past lives where there's aspects of it that stick with you from life to life to life. So, all right, let's go ahead and see. Do we have any last questions here to take? Because we are getting to our hour mark here. Really appreciate you guys hanging in with us. I know the show goes late and some people have to bail out after a little while. But I guess to kind of wrap it up here, my belief in the matter is that ancient aliens, did they exist? Did aliens come and visit our planet thousands of years ago and impart information to our ancient ancestors. Yeah. Kind of like what Shana's been saying all night. Why not? Why not? I mean, you got to think about this, okay? Our universe is, 14.5 billion years old, right? And we've been around for 4.5 of that. So the planet Earth has been around for about 4.5 billion years. So that means the rest of the universe has a 9 billion year head start on us. That's a lot of time to get all that technology developed and start traveling the universe. So during that time, could a alien race have figured out space travel and come to our planet, discovered it, and checked it out, and found creatures and people inhabiting it? Yep, absolutely could have happened. The problem is finding that definitive proof, because things deteriorate over time and we don't quite understand what our ancient ancestors were trying to communicate. We have a decent idea about hieroglyphs and of some cultures. Others, we still have these undecipherable texts. So many things have been lost to time. We have like this little bit of an inkling of what the hell happened back then. We know they lived. They know somehow they built these structures. We don't know how they built these structures. And we don't know, in a lot of cases, why they were abandoned, and what the function of many of these things were. You look at something like Tiwanaku, and, there's this, one pyramid there that has all this mica lining the walls inside of it, and these channels for maybe like water and stuff, and they've found some different elements in there, and there's like, okay, were they making like a huge, a lot of times they think that these things might have been power plants, so they were trying to generate power, and there's evidence of a fire there, so they blew something up, and there was mercury in there, liquid mercury, which is very hard to come by naturally. So what the hell were they doing? We don't know. And where did they get some of these ideas from? We talk about the gods, and the question is, were some of these gods actually extraterrestrials? We don't know. I'm not saying it's aliens, but maybe. But maybe. So, all right, everybody. What are we congratulating? Oh, they're congratulating me on the Vegas award. So that was a nomination. I don't know if we've won that award yet, but that was a nomination. We shall see when we go there. But yeah, we were nominated for Paranormal Media, Excellence in Paranormal, whatever the heck it was called. So I hope some of you are able to make it out to that in Vegas this weekend. So that is the Shockfest Film Festival in Paraculticon. They're doing a thing called Hotel Paranormal, which is pretty cool because it's like a murder mystery thing, and it's very horror themed because it's a horror film festival. So yeah, it's creepy, but creepy cool. So I hope you guys can make it out to that. In any case, keep the questions coming over the weeks, and this is a topic that we will revisit from time to time. We'll go ghosts or something next time. No show next week. Keep that in mind. No show next week because of the travel. So, but we'll be back December 3rd. We'll see all of you then. Now I think it's time to get some ice cream. Yeah, she's down for that. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Till next time.